Connected. This message is brought to you by the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Remember, preparedness over panic is key.
Well, that message there from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, a good way to start our program today. We want to say a very good morning to the executives of the Chamber, the President, Ms. Giselle Matthew, Ms. Natalie Kelsick, as well as Mr. Andrew Satney. Good morning, and thank you for being here with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning to your listeners and to you, Clay.
Well, it's a brand new day, isn't it? It's a brand new day. We've had an announcement this morning that there's going to be a state of emergency. We'll get into the details of that a bit later on when the Prime Minister and the Attorney General will be with us this afternoon. But we wanted to hear from the private sector in terms of your response so far and what else you'd like to share with the public. So with your permission, I'll begin first with the President.
Good morning to all listeners. The St. Kitts Nevis Chamber and Industry of Commerce, we have been engaging over the last 2 weeks in various areas with our membership and along with working very closely with NEMA and the COVID-19 task force. I believe, Clive, our very first engagement was on March 5th. We met, we had a interactive forum with our membership. About 80 of our members, I think, turned up. A very much informative meeting, questions, answers. The business community was able to get clarification on do's and don'ts, and they gave us very good guidance in going forward. However, at that point in time, as you know, we did not have any cases on St. Kitts that we knew of at the time, and we've recently, since then, had our advice on the 2 confirmed cases on St. Kitts, which then changes the dynamic completely and how we all feel, I think, as a society. We have also, as you know, the Bankers Association had also met with us, their representative, Chad Allen. They also released information for the public businesses on the necessary steps they were taking in assistance and moratoriums on loans, etc. We have since then also released a plan for businesses. We first did a visual, really was more on safety and health for employees, employers, customers, and clients, on tips on how to wash hands and reasons why you must take COVID-19 so seriously. So those were visuals that companies could use within their organizations, their businesses, their retail outlets, their offices to post up and educate. So that was one of our very first steps. And then following that, we have released another document, I believe it was last week, Thursday, to all our membership again, and you as media. And that one covered preparing the business community for COVID-19. And that was some tips on how businesses could try to restructure and really ride through this turbulent time and Natalie could speak more to those tips, but on operational issues and workspace, workforce technology, utilizing different areas to keep your expenses, your operating expenses down, and to be as efficient as possible during this period. What else have we done? I could add. Yeah, and I'll let Andrew jump in here. This is our executive director.
I could add, Madam President and the listening audience, that we had consultations. The suppliers of food and other essential goods met with Mr. Abdias and other persons from the Ministry of Agriculture to discuss availability and supply of food over a certain time period. And as I mentioned, Mr. Samuel, let me just say that we commend the work done by the COVID Task Force Committee led by Mr. Samuel and the CMO. They have been incredible, and we continue to pray for their health, because if they're healthy, then it adds confidence in our ability to fight this virus. So we met with them, and the suppliers, the main supermarkets and so on, the Ministry of Agriculture made a presentation informing them on the availability of food supplies, the issue of imports, transportation, and so on. We also had discussions with the Port Authority, the Ports Authority Management, and the head of Customs on the ability to continue to allow cargo ships to come into the country, what issues importers may have, and so on and so forth. and they have given the assurance that they will continue to work as long as the ships are able to travel from the U.S. and elsewhere. The Chamber also had a meeting with the Minister of Labor, the Labor Commissioner, the PS of Labor, and in that meeting was the St. Kitts and Nevis Trades and Labor Union, the Teachers Union, as well as the Ministry of Finance. Again, it was to discuss ways and means how we can continue to put systems in place and work with the authorities as we continue the teamwork towards managing the whole challenge, the challenges that we are going through and we'll go through over the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to add this in. Thank you.
Now, you've mentioned a number of things, and I'd like to invite Ms. Kelsick to perhaps give us some more examples that we could actually visualize and understand. I know things have changed. We've been around town. We've seen what's happening. People are lining up to go to certain places. People are going to certain places now greeted at the door with hand sanitizer and all kinds of things. So, Ms. Kelsick.
Yes, good morning. That's right. A lot has been taking place inside of our community to make sure that our customers and also staff can stay safe. And I'd like to take a moment to commend also the efforts that have been made by those in the business community and also in the general public for adhering to the hygiene guidelines, social distancing, et cetera, But as Madam President alluded to, we did prepare a document on March 20th to just add some support to businesses that are trying to prepare and figure out how to plan and wade waters through this challenging time. I'm going to read through a couple of those tips that we shared, but if anyone would like to look through it in more detail or print it off for themselves, it is available on our Facebook page, the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, in full, if anyone would like to consult there. But our first tip that we recommended was that business places restructure their workplace and workforce. We asked that businesses consider adjusting your workforce in the form of staggered working hours, a shift system, or working from home. And also, now that we have confirmed cases in the country, this consideration about working from home is even more paramount and even more important. We also suggested that persons schedule their staff on vacation so that human resources are in place when the economy bounces back. This is a tip that the Department of Labor has also emphasized and encouraged the business community to do, and to consider layoffs as a last resort. Also, now that we are moving into a state of emergency, reducing opening hours is also going to be something that is going to be moving immediately to the forefront. Secondly, we also highlighted that businesses should reduce unnecessary operational expenses. This one is key. I mean, we here in St. Kitts have had the opportunity to see what has happened around the world and how this COVID-19 has impacted the economy. So things like reducing your usage of utilities like electricity and water to save on costs, and also engage employees in other tasks. So let's say you're working with a limited task force inside of your own business, those who may not be used to cleaning or those who may not, be used to working on the cash register, cross-training and utilizing your human resources in different ways so that you can remain as efficient as possible is also important. Also, we encourage those to leverage technology. Dependent on your business model, consider the option of setting up your business to accommodate employees working from home. Also, we've been doing this a lot lately as a chamber to reduce face-to-face meetings in a group setting. I can even say right now in the studio, we are spread out as much as possible to try and keep that social distancing up. Also, health and safety in the workplace is very important for us to observe right now. For all businesses, we are encouraging everyone to ensure that sanitization stations are made available to staff and customers, staff lunchrooms and restrooms, and encourage everyone to practice routine practice of disinfecting common areas and workspaces is also key. Also, it's important to everyone to try and wash their hands as much as possible for the recommended 20 seconds or more, making sure that you get between your fingertips, your thumbs, etc. And lastly, we also encourage education and information dissemination to management and employees. I would hope that by this time that most businesses have, and I suggest that those who haven't try to set up a reliable system for smooth and steady flow of information through the workplace. You can do this by using a WhatsApp group to provide regular updates or send out email blasts to key members of your staff. Establish protocols for sick employees and advise them to contact if they will not be at work. Encourage employees to only rely on news from credible sources. I believe our Madam President is going to speak a bit on this topic. But at the end of the day, the important thing is preparedness over panic. The more that we can all take steps to be prepared and avoid this feeling of panic, the more efficient and the more productive we can all be. And like I said, if anyone would like to look at these tips in full, you can find them on our Facebook page at St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce.
And thank you very much for that. You mentioned credible sources and credible information. We are in a time where everybody's a publisher, everybody's a broadcaster, everybody's a photographer and a videographer. So nobody's waiting on mainstream media, as people like to call mainstream media. Most times the media professionals are catching up with what's already in social media. So what strategy do you employ to deal with that? What would you recommend in terms of not only employers but your customers?
Well, Clive, you are correct that everybody thinks they are probably all of the above as you spoke about. But I think what we need to really reiterate here, and you would have received our press release, I'm assuming, from the Chamber on March 26th, I think, yesterday morning, where we felt that we should respond and we should, be vigilant as a society, because there are so many false pieces of news floating around and being shared. I think one of the areas that is of major concern is that persons who should truly know better are sharing information without confirming its source and passing it along very easily by a click on your phone. And it created, we saw it, we as a business community and business owners ourselves, we could see the panic, you could see the traffic, you could see the lines, you could see people dashing to the stores during the daytime, just in pure panic from voice notes and messages that went out that there was a major shutdown taking place like within a few hours. I received it myself. Many of us within the chamber received phone calls. I personally received a phone call from a lady who was extremely frazzled, and she was given my phone number by someone. She had recently had surgery and would have no time to get her medication and her groceries, and felt she needed to talk to someone, and somehow her number was passed to me. And after that, I felt this is really unfair to persons who are senior citizens, persons who otherwise do not have a big family to turn to for assistance, or like her, out of recent health issue, recovering at home. I think it's fear-mongering is really what it is, and we are asking that stops. And we're asking young people and everyone who listens to whatever form of media to make sure that it is bona fide. Maybe tune in more to radio stations. Maybe we need to take that old radio out and put some batteries in, plug it in, and listen to the good old radio stations like yourselves and all of the stations around, our local news broadcasts, our local television, the government information services. If it doesn't bear the coat of arms, as the Ministry of Health has indicated, and NEMA, do not share it, because it's most likely it hasn't come from a trusted source. So we need to educate the public not only about the health and the safety within our businesses and proper protocols of individual firms, but also to practice this as part of your new daily routine, in terms of being a good, responsible citizen at this time. This is really a sensitive time. We are already under so much stress. Why do we want to create more? If we truly love our country and our people, then this is not the type of behavior that we would expect.
You listen to Inside the News on WinFM 90.9. We have with us the President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mrs. Giselle Matthews, and President. And, of course, the Vice President, Ms. Natalie Kelsick, Executive Director, Mr. Satney as well. How do you deal with the psychology of all this? I know you guys are not psychologists, all right? But how do you get buy-in from not only employers, but from staff? This is all unfolding as we speak. How do you deal with the psychology of this? Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a very loaded question. I mean, you have to take it by a case-by-case basis. I think the important thing is to remain calm. It's very important for management to remain calm in times like this, and also to listen to the concerns of staff and address them either one by one or in a large forum. I mean, for the large part, the largest concern that we've seen is that persons are, you see it on the street, people are afraid whenever you hear a cough or a sneeze, everyone turns around and looks very offended. So I think it's important for us to listen to the CMO and the advice that has been given that if someone is feeling sick, that they should stay home to protect themselves and also to protect others. We've just reached a point, especially now that we have confirmed cases, that we can't ignore that at all.
Yeah, I think also, Clive, I think we've all had to become psychologists. I mean, within all our businesses, I think individually as a chamber, I know that most of our businesses are engaging their staff, as Natalie says, in either meetings more regularly now, or chats have been set up on their phones to communicate with management or supervisory levels to continuously feed them information. We have a responsibility to educate them, to help them, because they're nervous. Their families don't know maybe as much as we might know. So we have the information. So it's our job to pass that on, to try and help them, to guide them, to also make them understand that every dollar that you have in your wallet, you better spend that very carefully, and be really responsible with it, and cut back in a lot of areas that are not necessarily needed. Those wants, maybe put them in your back pocket for much later down the road, because right now, every dollar that you have is critical, and it's really important you spend it wisely and you don't waste, and you maybe cook more at home. I think in all of this negativity, I think there's going to be some really good that in the end, I believe that will come out for families, spending more time together, eating together, cooking, maybe playing good old-fashioned games that you didn't think you needed. You're dusting them off if you could even find them. There's only so much technology people can handle. And the more we are in tune with the news, especially the media outside, the international news media, it's very depressing. So I think you need to remove yourself from that every now and again and kind of take a step back.
I just wanted to add that all the activity we are conducting in St. Kitts, we do the same in Nevis. We have the Nevis division in Nevis headed by Ms. Claxton and staffed with Ms. Liebert. They have been doing a fantastic job in informing members there. In fact, they organized a meeting with us, the executive, and with the premier a couple of days ago, in which information was shared with him and other members of the committee, of the council over there, on the actions and the activities that we are recommending. Again, I cannot, the issue of information, credible information, is very important. In the chamber, we do not send out information that has not come from the authorities. The authorities identified by the president. Some people call us and they wonder why we are so calm. And as Ms. Kelsick said, we have to remain calm. We have to provide leadership. And the reason why we are calm is because we listen to what the authorities say. We're not going to go off and react based on something we read on one of the social media outlets. And this is how we will continue to operate. We are in constant contact with the task force headed by Mr. Samuel. And he could call us anytime, early morning, nighttime, anything as things happen. And I think, in fact, later today we're going to meet with him and others from that task force just to be clear on certain issues so we can inform our members and the general public. Let's just see. When we send statements out to our members, we send it to the wider media houses just to ensure that everyone hears what we are saying.
Yeah, we on that matter, Clive, we will be engaging with them later on. We don't have a time yet. They have access to meet with them, and we are at their disposal. I think that's really a matter of having clarity in some areas that might be a bit ambiguous at this time. That with any state of emergency in any country, that's always some tweaking for the private sector in terms of an understanding of the do's and don'ts. So we won't be able to advise much on that at this time. We want to get the facts from them, and then we will be able to feed that out to the general public and to our membership and to you, obviously the media, and that will come later in the day. And I would also imagine that part of the Prime Minister's address, when he does come on at 12:30, will be to address some of those areas.
Yes, just to remind our listeners that the Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, and of course the Attorney General, Mr. Byron, will be here at 12:30. I'm sure that there are questions that you have that I'm sure the Prime Minister and the Attorney General will answer for you. There are always information gaps. Doesn't matter how well you prepare, people always will ask a question. So I expect those questions will be addressed this afternoon. But I think, speaking as a member of the community, people are basically need assurances about supply. It's about demand and supply. What can you say to them about that? They need to think that there's a reserve, that if I come tomorrow, I'll get what I want. Because I think early on when the hand sanitizers went south, people started to realize that, hey, I might not be getting something else. So how do you speak to them about that concern?
Well, in terms of that concern, I can speak to that as I've been working closely with shipping agents such as King Ocean Shipping, which we represent at Horsfords. Just yesterday, we received confirmation from them that their operations are operating as normal. So, we'd like to give some more reassurance to people that things are operating normally from the shipping side of things. And also the Chamber of Commerce has been working closely with the government as well to ensure that we get the needed support from government services such as customs. And we have gotten that thus far, and I have to commend them for that, and the collaborative effort will continue in that regard. As for supply, as shipments are still coming in weekly, there is no forecasted impact to our supply at this time. I mean, things like hand sanitizer are things that have, let's say, taken a toll globally. So supply for those items are a bit restricted. But now we're seeing local suppliers and local producers producing their own hand sanitizer. I know that at Spice Mill they're doing this High Five hand sanitizer, which is really, really awesome to be able to, see a boom in business like that, and that local people are taking initiative as well. Also, I know that there's a local rubbing alcohol supplier that is
Demerara Distillers.
Demerara,
right. Yes, and we at Valley Mart we do have those local products featured as well as throughout other places throughout the business community. And also, as we noted in the Prime Minister's address this morning, that essential services, which grocery is one of as well, would remain open to serve the public as well. So I hope that those things are assuring to the public.
Yes, and Clive, I think most shipping lines are, as far as we are aware at the Chamber, are functioning, are open, and from the Miami end. We were not aware of any closures of ports on the Miami side. We do know that, I think New Jersey, if I'm correct, Tropical had announced a closure on that side. But as far as we know, most of the shipping lines are functional and operational as we speak today. Everything changes so often. We have to be careful that we speak for today. But yes, so in terms of supplies, I think we're okay. I want to see us grow some more stuff. I think we need to get back heavily. I'm going to let Andrew speak on agro-processing, agriculture, fisheries. I think this is really critical.
Well, I just wanted to add again in the Prime Minister's address on the 24th, he did mention the loan facilities and access to finance for our fisher folks and farmers and so on that will allow them the flexibility to increase production. I had a discussion with the Chief Director of Agriculture, Mr. Melvin James, and he said to me that they can also make seeds and seedlings available to farmers at a reduced cost to really boost production, and at the same time they will use their technical capacity to advise persons how to produce at home in their own backyard and so on. So the Ministry of Agriculture is ready to work with everyone, and also there has been discussions with them to ensure that they can expand the availability of land land that will be available for plowing, rotovating, and to help land preparation. We heard in Nevis all that is being done for free on the other side, and also Mr. James told me they're doing the same here in St. Kitts. One of the issues that came up with regards to availability of supplies was the issue of storage. Most of our importers and so on have capacity, but they've spoken about the need for maybe special areas which can be bulldozed or flattened where containers could be packed in case there is need to do so.
I'd also like to add on the note of supply that we all need to observe the guidelines set out in grocery stores and also be mindful that other people need things as well. And we need to, encourage the public to stop panic buying. I've seen so many pictures of persons with full shopping carts or empty shelves in the States. And, yes, the fear is there. Yes, the panic is real. However, we have to also be responsible adults and responsible human beings and be mindful of our neighbor that is also going to need some food as well. So if you see, the rice or whatever it is that your toilet paper has been a hot item as well, leave a pack or, take what you need for your family and leave for other people to have as well, because there's only so much we can do, from a food supply perspective. But we know that if we all work together, with all the food suppliers, and also if we get cooperation from the public, that everyone is going to remain fed during this time without panic buying.
In other territories, there have been concerns of price gouging. Has that been an issue here?
I don't know if it has been an issue, but we know that and we'll speak a bit more or get into our considerations that we had sent to the government earlier in the week. We did touch on price gouging. We just said that we felt I don't have it in front of me, but the Consumer Affairs Department could monitor more closely on the matter of any possible price gouging, that they could monitor and manage that process in the event that persons are thinking or engaging in that. I would imagine that after the Prime Minister's stimulus, he did ask that VAT was removed from certain essential items. I think I'll let maybe Andrew run through those, but I do know things like alcohol and hand sanitizers, Lysol sprays. This is off of my memory, so I'm not going to get into it. I'll let Andrew cover if we feel we need to let the general public be reminded. However, most businesses would have immediately, I would imagine, removed. Natalie can speak more from a food supplier, a retailer. But in my own store, immediately we did remove the VAT off of those. So I think it's a matter of policing, and maybe they will have to pay a little more attention to those matters, especially at this time.
Mm-hmm. But just to highlight to the public as well that even though those certain costs have been alleviated from those specified items, a lot of these items are in high demand throughout the world globally, and there is a chance, and it is happening now, that certain products, the prices are being increased from suppliers. Mm-hmm. There's no way around this. It's something that the public needs to be sensitized to, that sometimes, you might see over time that certain things may go up in price, but it's not because of price gouging.
Right.
And Consumer Affairs will be mindful of that when they are monitoring these things. So just be guided that we too also have to work with those overseas powers that are setting those prices for us.
Right, good point.
All right, we're going to take a pause here to hear from our partners. We'll come back with more in just a moment. We have Ms. Natalie Kelsick, Ms. Jill Matthews, Ms. Giselle Matthews, and of course Mr. Andrew Satney from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce with us on Inside the News.
Calling all farmers! Calling all farmers! The place to shop in the month of March is the TDC Home and Building Depots. Get a 20% off all agro products. Then on Saturday, 28 March, visit the farmers market to purchase your fresh produce direct from the farm to your table from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in both locations. The TDC Home and Building Depots, celebrating farmers, supporting communities. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
In our pledge to keep everyone connected while helping to lessen the economic impact as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the cable for the next 60 days will 1. Increase the speed of the entry-level broadband package from 6 megabits to 10 megabits. 2. Reduce the price of the flash and bulk packages by 20%. The flash package from $97 to $77. The bulk package from $139 to $109. 3. Reopen the free Wi-Fi hotspots in Bastia. 4. Waive late fees. 5. Waive installation fees. This period is challenging for everyone, but is also an opportunity for the entire nation to come together and rally as one to overcome this crisis. Let's all do our part, maintain hope, and get through this together. Keep safe.
You're listening to Win FM's 90.9 www.winnfm.com, and we're with the Executive Director, President and Vice President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and we're having a discussion about the realities that are right now, being adjusted to, being dealt with, and we all have to make a few changes to our regular routines. It's not the regular day. We're going to go back to the panel now. What are some of the frequently asked questions at this time that you would like to respond to? You may have heard some questions either from employers or from customers that you think you may want to respond to. Are there any at this time?
Can I just received a message from Tropical Shipping. Obviously, they're listening in, and they asked that we could just advise the general public that their services are operating as normal from Florida, Canada, Puerto Rico, and all other Caribbean islands and globally. So that should clear up any questions from shipping. So we know that King Ocean, and we now know that Tropical, and we assume that must go for Crowley, and I'm assuming the others. Questions. Oh, boy. Questions in relation to, my mind has gone blank. Clive.
Yeah, I was asking basically about, sometimes you have something that keeps coming up over and over again, and we call them frequently asked questions. Is there like one or two that essentially you would want to respond to? Like, you're probably trying to figure out what some people are actually enduring right now and what answers they need to help them make the right decisions.
Well, I'll tell you, yes. One question, I suppose, would be how will I survive through this? We have to understand that this is not gradual. This has been, the business sector and community has been hit a blow immediately. Okay, the ships pulled out suddenly. The airlines are not coming. The hotels have shut down abruptly. Hundreds of people have been sent home because if there's no business, how are you going to pay them? How are you going to keep them employed? And this is not something that we battened down for, prepared for hurricane, and picked up the pieces, or we know within a week we can kind of clean up, and 2 weeks, maybe a month if it was a bad one, and we on our feet, and eventually once the powers that be overseas know and the markets open back that we are ready for business, the flights will come back and the ships will come. This is just unprecedented. This is uncharted waters. This is going to be a long, very painful road. Not only for the people who have been displaced from their jobs, but the businesses. The businesses, some may not exist. Some may not be able to ride this wave. And so, yes, the question is how, from our membership, especially small and the medium, even the large businesses, they don't know the answer. How do we get through this time? And I will be very blunt and straight up here and say that I think we need help. The business sector hasn't been given a lifeline. We asked in our letter, we did write to the government and they did respond. And we're hoping to get further engagement, and I know we will, that we did write some considerations. And it was obviously, we had a short timeline to get it into them. But we are hoping that after we understand they're under tremendous pressure at this time, and they're also making deadlines, we hope that the chamber will be engaged further on some level of assistance to the business sector. Now, just to be clear, the business sector isn't asking for any handouts at all. Those handouts should go to the persons on the street who do not have jobs and who have been displaced, laid off, severed, whatever. So we feel pretty confident and comfortable that that I think that persons will be able to eat and keep a roof over their head. But we need to know that the same businesses that are functioning are expected to embrace and employ once the markets get back to normalcy. We don't even know how long that will be, that the majority of them would still exist and still be able to employ people and put them back to work and keep our economy going. And so we need to speak more about a package that might have some attention on the businesses in this country, because without the businesses, they drive economies. And without those businesses, there's no real economy. And so that's an engagement that I am anxiously awaiting for with the Prime Minister and his team. So we could have further engagement, hopefully next week when we get through the state of emergency and put in a necessary shutdown, which we I think I can speak for my board and for all of the executive of the chamber. We were involved in the process yesterday. We were asked how we felt, and we gave our opinions that we felt the only way to truly, control this deadly disease is to do this. It's hard times, hard measures, because we've seen it, we look at it, we know what's happening in other parts of the world, and we know that if we don't do this, we stand to lose so much more in the long run, and we have to be all acting as if we have it, as if we have the disease, sadly. But that would make us more cognizant to that social distancing, which we would speak maybe a little bit more about, but that is key. So we are very much on board with what the government has done in calling the state of emergency powers, along with any fines for people who are on the street who are not adhering to quarantine rules, and any other measures that they've put in place. I think they have the chamber's support.
Now, we've had the stimulus package in place, and I'm hearing you say there's need for more consultation. Are there any particular, I think you mentioned one or two. Is there anything else in terms of a gap that you'd like to perhaps speak to, or is it something you're going to do behind closed doors and then get back to us a bit later on?
I don't think it, I don't really believe it. Yes, I mean, the details would be, behind the closed doors. But I believe that we can take the two taxes. If we want to look at the two taxes, you have trader's tax or turnover tax, which they have reduced from 4% to 2%. That is paid quarterly, and a lot of smaller businesses might fall under that bracket. I don't think there's going to be any turnover to pay tax on. Quite frankly, I don't mean to be Miss Doom and Gloom, but this is the reality. We won't have much of an economy in the next. We already have half of an economy at the moment. I think we've been slashed by 50 to 60% immediately, and the rest will just disappear over the next month or so. So, in that regard, our feelings as a chamber and as a board, it's really that there is not going to be much economic activity, other than if you're in essential services like maybe supermarkets, people need to eat. But it's still not going to be the same, because they too have lost a massive segment of a market. Let's face it, all of the university students from Ross and IUHMS and Windsor, they've all left. The majority of them have left. So that second economy that we rely on outside of the tourism sector, which we don't speak a lot about in numbers, but that international university school sector is huge. And they've all gone. We don't know when they're coming back. We're hearing different dates. They don't know themselves because it's all unfolding as it goes. So we've lost two major sectors to the business community, to the economy. So turnover tax, I think it should, in our opinion, I think maybe a suspension for the period of the 6 months at least, because that way, then there will be some cash flow within that business, enough to keep people and those people who are employed still to make that payroll, to pay them, or to pay operating expenses that they need to keep going monthly. Secondly, under the corporate tax structure, we've been offered for those businesses that keep 75% of their employees, they get a reduction from 33 to 25%. Really and truly, again, if you understand how, and maybe, the understanding of corporate tax is very important, because corporate tax installments are paid every quarter on your tax revenue of the year before, of the previous year activity. So you would be paying upfront installments in corporate tax of 33% for your turnover tax of the year before, which was a good year. But now you don't have a good year. You don't have much business to turn over at all. But you're paying tax upfront. These businesses then are paying tax upfront using critical cash flow that they now don't really have. Because let's take a business that has relied 100% on tourism sector. They would have lost 90% of their business immediately. They're now going into losses. There's no real economy for them. So they have now laid off without any choice of theirs or anyone. They have had to lay off. Let's face it. They can't keep them employed because they can't pay them, because there's no business. So at the end of that year, they more than likely have lost, as they haven't made a profit, but yet they've paid tax upfront to the government on a business that has lost money. So you might say they'll get a credit, but they needed that cash. That cash could have hopefully kept them to employ a certain segment, or that cash could have been again helped to operate the business. There's just not enough. There's just not going to be that money to play around with. It just won't even be there. So I have to say that we want to have an engagement, and I believe it was, we were a bit. We understand we had a timeline that was tight. We chose to get something in, and it got in just before government was dealing with their own cabinet. So we don't believe that it's all lost at all. We are very confident that we will be having further engagement, and we will be able to come up with something. I believe all of us would agree that it's only without the business community there is no economy. So hopefully that will be the next package that we can talk about.
And of course, if you're not in essential business and you have emergency measures in place, then you'll have to either have your workers work remotely, or you'll have to close. That's what
Simple, yes.
That's what it means in terms of having a state of emergency. Essentially, though, is there a silver lining here? Can we talk? Is it too soon to see it?
Well, there are different scenarios. I mean, Andrew might have more timelines, but I do know that I think we can withstand I think we could come out at 6 months and brush ourselves off with the right initiatives in place for all of us. You will see some closures. That's going to be normal. But I think if we stretch it down to the end of the year, I think it's going to be tough. I believe the central bank has done some forecasts, and I think their forecasts show, if 6 months, we should be all right. It's going to be tough. Let's not fool ourselves. It's going to be a rough 6 months anyway. But it all is dependent on the global market. It's fully dependent on how Europe and the United States, Canada, how they all bounce back. The United Kingdom, we rely on them for our sector. So it all is very much dependent on those markets and how we control our own COVID-19 cases here, how we are able to keep those numbers low and don't have a spike, because we're too small to withstand that. We just won't be able to handle it. So I think these measures that have been put in place this morning at 6 a.m. is very good, very important.
Well, one silver lining I will perhaps offer is the fact that you have high connectivity in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think you have more connectivity than anyone else in the Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of wireless Wi-Fi and access to technology. So the remote working aspect of it may be a new way of doing business. I don't know. Am I far-fetched?
No, I think many people are using those methods already, and maybe Andrew and Natalie could speak more. But yeah, some businesses are definitely capable of doing that. The ones that are providing a service to the public is a little more difficult. But I would let them have a weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, we all, we live in a small island and we have a set culture and a set way of doing things socially. And I think that already we're noticing a big shift in our own social culture in how we do business. Before, we were largely a face-to-face communities, how we do things. We like to do things in person. But now, now that we've been forced to consider a new perspective and a new way of doing things, it's, perhaps not that bad. Persons want now to experience some distance between themselves and a cashier or themselves and other shoppers or, how they deal with money and whatnot. And I think that these practices perhaps will help us in the long run to maintain certain levels of boundary between each other as people. And that is important to maintain just in general. Also from the working from home side of things, that is also something that is not common for us here in St. Kitts and probably throughout the region, but it's something that's practiced in other parts of the world with great success. I do look forward to seeing how that impacts our work culture moving forward.
Of course, you raised the issue early on, Madam President, of agro-processing. Now, as I said earlier, this is not a time for remonstrations and recriminations and all that, but we've heard complaints that there has not been enough money poured into agriculture, not only in St. Kitts. This is a Caribbean-wide issue. Some have argued that agriculture has been treated like a stepchild, or go to the back of the room, people coming and so. Is it time, Mr. Satney, you're the man who's been doing trade for a long time. Is it time perhaps for us to look closer at this grand ideal of self-sufficiency?
Thank you very much, Mr. Bacchus. With regards to agriculture, I've been in the agricultural field for quite a few years at the national and regional international levels. St. Kitts and Nevis is blessed with some of the best soils in the Caribbean. Because of the history of sugarcane and the constant tilling of the soil, it can be worked very quickly into increasing the production process. In our discussions with the Ministry of Agriculture, they have indicated that they have put some systems in place and will continue to do so to increase production by making, for example, availability of seeds, ensuring that land preparation could be done at a reduced or no cost, and also continuing to build the confidence that they will be able to provide some of the crops. What they have done, for example, they've done a survey looking at the availability of crop and livestock and working very closely with the fisheries department. And they gave some details recently about how much poultry is available, eggs, beef, small livestock like rabbit, goats, and so on in the Federation. In fact, I'm told today they are having another consultation with the livestock producers and they will submit a report later today. Tomorrow, they told me they will be talking with some of the farmers, the key farmers that produce crops. They have the land, they have the land preparation facility, and they have the seeds. They identified certain crops that could come into production very quickly. Of course, the root crops might take 9 months, for example, like sweet potatoes and so on. They're looking at white potatoes as well. Some of the vegetables, like, for example, lettuce, Chinese cabbage and tomatoes and so on, can come into production available to the general public within a few weeks' time. So they have a plan, they have a strategy, and they have been in consultation with our retail and outlets and our supermarket chains to see what they'll have available. Agriculture has its challenges with regards to the availability of water, and we know St. Kitts and Nevis depend on the normal potable water for irrigation. And we've heard the government say that they will waive the price of water for agriculture in the Federation, and that's very, very good. That should help boost production. They have had certain pests and other problems. This is in every country that grows agriculture, especially where monocrops exist. It all has to do with the fact that our producers, and I heard the government say that they encourage persons who may not be in agriculture at this time to come forward and present themselves to become agriculturists. We have a lot of land in the Federation. We have to work it systematically, and the gestures being provided by the government and the Ministry of Agriculture, and also the availability of soft loans and so on through the Development Bank will certainly help us boost our production to go through the challenges we have at this time.
The reality is we're still importing 80% of the food stuff, and that's the reality we can't avoid. I take the point you've made. The Director of Agriculture has said when asked for recommendations, he said, look, we have to boost imports in the short term. We have to get some fast crops, in my words, going, get people interested in backyard gardening and so on. And, of course, the dealing with our friends, the monkeys, and the other feral animals as well. So it's been a tough challenge. I think everybody's heart is in the right place of getting it done. It's not as easy as it seems. If it was easy, it would have been done already.
Absolutely.
But we're almost out of time. So just about time for you to perhaps recap some of the major points you'd like to make before you leave, and perhaps some takeaway for our listeners.
I'll let Natalie go first. You want to?
Well, I think the key takeaway is I think the biggest one is to make sure that everyone pays attention to credible news sources and, look for the coat of arms on official releases so that we can all be guided by the most productive and truthful information, because the fear-mongering is not going to help any of us. And, we have to look out for our neighbor and try and make sure that we're all working from the same page and singing from the same hymn book in this time. That's very important. I'll let Madam President close up.
Andrew, you want to say anything?
Okay, yes. Also, for me, the takeaways and which people should listen to very closely is the fact that we still have access to the markets out there and our supplies from overseas. We heard it from the persons directly involved in it, like the shipping companies. We heard the note sent by Tropical Shipping with regards to the shipping arrangements and the assurances of the port operators. This is a very important takeaway, and again, we encourage people not to panic buying. I'll just say again, the Chamber of Commerce will not put out any information that does not have the coat of arms. We get a lot of stuff coming at us, and we have people calling us and say, why y'all didn't say that? Why y'all didn't put that out yet? And so on and so forth. We're not going to do that. At any one time something comes up, we get the clearance from the authorities. That's how we operate. It would be irresponsible of us to be echoing what persons in the social media say, and that does not help any one of us. It causes confusion, disorientation, panic, and also it will impact on our mental health capacity in this country. Mm-hmm. And we have to be very, very careful about that. We have to remain calm. We have to give assurances. And as Madam President said, sometimes the persons who send out the information should be more responsible. And that is why sometimes when we do not react to something, people will say, but so-and-so say so-and-so. That's not how it operates. We say to them, until we get the coat of arms language, we will not put it out. And this is how we'll continue to operate. We work as a team. We are part of this St. Kitts and Nevis Disaster Mitigation Committee, which is headed by the Attorney General. And 2 Sundays ago, they called us at 3 o'clock for a 4 o'clock meeting, and the President and I were there. We came to the meeting, we were part of the discussion. And this is how it operates. If we get up 6 o'clock in the morning and we get a call from Mr. Samuel, we are there. And they consult with us at all times, if I may say so. And the government as a whole consults with the Chamber of Commerce in everything when they try to get our input in everything that they do. So it's a teamwork. And the survival for this disease has to do with teamwork, positive teamwork. And again, I wish to thank the collaboration that exists between all the different parties concerned. And the Chamber will continue to put out relevant information. We'll continue to work with our members. And we will take their advice and guidance as well to bring forward to the authorities. And thank you, Clive, for inviting us here today. And we look forward to this regular process of informing the public on this and other issues.
Thank you to Clive. Thank you to Natalie and our executive director, who is working extremely hard. We've been thrown in the last, as you know, this is a new board that came in on the 25th of March. So we have been, if anyone told us this is what we would be facing, I don't think Natalie or I or the new board would believe this. Anyways, so we have a purpose, and we're here to serve that purpose. And I would just like to say to the task force headed by the CMO and Mr. Samuel that they give reassurance. These people are working beyond the call of duty. The task force is very organized. They have a strategic plan. And we just want to say publicly from the chamber that we appreciate the work that they're doing. We appreciate that under all of this, they seem to be able to manage to keep measured and provide the facts. We know they're getting very little sleep. But we are happy to continue to collaborate and be at their disposal as they need as we go through this very challenging time. But I believe together we can do it. So, as again we say, preparedness is key, not panic. Thanks for listening.
Well, I know it's a tough time, and I know perhaps it's not a good time for jokes, but I'm going to leave one anyway. I like to take risks sometimes.
Yes. Okay.
You think perhaps we'll now be able to have dinner without looking at our phones? I think we'll leave it there.
I think so.
The spread of COVID-19 is vital for protecting our communities. The St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce supports the work of the authorities in preparing for and responding to COVID-19. Right now, it is important for people to take social distancing seriously. This means ensuring that you maintain a distance of at least 6 feet between people. Adhere to company guidelines when you visit local businesses and other public spaces. Be mindful of the person in front of you and avoid gathering in large groups. Most importantly, stay home when you're sick. Keep washing and sanitizing your hands thoroughly, covering your cough, and cleaning frequently touched surfaces.
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.